back. We have Annie McCary here, who is here on behalf, of course, the Third Mutual Board. Well, welcome. Nice to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back again.
Well, thank you for gathering up all this information about the compliance process, because I know that you guys have been working hard at getting something passed. And so here we are.
Here we are, yes.
Well, good. Well, walk us through kind of, what it's about and what has been going on with it.
Well, compliance is an area that we work very, very hard to make sure that we adhere to the rules and regulations because we like order in our community.
Yeah.
And the compliance division is an area where we make sure that we stay orderly in our community. Mm-hmm. So there is a process that's involved with compliance, and as I mentioned earlier, it is coordinated by the compliance division. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, when there's a violation, either through personal observation or someone calls in and report a violation, the staff will investigate the alleged complaint and then they will file an incident report or a notice about that. Mm-hmm. And then the staff will also investigate, and if they find any objective evidence of a violation by a member, and one of the things that's really important is not just a violation by a member, but members are responsible for their guest as well. So if a guest is in violation, then that member is held responsible.
I see.
So staff will send out a letter to the offending party describing what the alleged allegation is and whatever the possible actions might be if it's not corrected.
Now, obviously, this came about because there were several things that were going on in our community that sort of prompted this behavior. It's just it's kind of unbelievable, right? That here you move to a community, you don't think these things are going on, but they do.
Absolutely, and all kinds of behavior stuff goes on, and I'll talk a little bit later on about some of the other violations, like clutter and noise and dog barking. I mean, you would think that if you live in a community and you have a pet that you could let your pet run around and bark, but that's not the case. That could be considered a nuisance, especially if you don't pick up your poop after your dog, or if they're barking late at night during the quiet time.
Yeah.
So all of these are violations of our governing documents.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, let's move on. You said some more part of the process. So if the alleged violation has been resolved, then nothing else is required to do. However, if it's not, then what happens?
If it's not resolved once they've gotten a notice, then the staff can schedule an executive hearing to bring the alleged violator before the board to talk about the possible or the alleged allegation and what the ramifications are if the allegation is not corrected.
Wow, okay. Now you've got a great chart here that you kind of follow along. So if you could just sort of give us, kind of the rundown here and go over that.
Great, and this is really a great chart, and actually my plan is to have this published in the next edition of the Village Breeze. But basically, in a nutshell, a complaint is received, either verbal complaint to the compliance department or someone calls in and reports a complaint. Staff will go out and do an investigation. Upon that investigation, they will make an incident report.
Okay.
And that report is sent to compliance. Then the offending party will get a courtesy notice explaining to them what the violation is and giving them an opportunity to make the corrections.
Okay.
After the correction notice has been sent, staff will do a follow-up investigation or follow-up inspection. And if compliance has been achieved, nothing else has been done. The complaint, the person that is out of compliance will get a notice saying that the investigation is complete or you're in compliance, no further action is necessary.
Okay.
Okay. And if compliance is not achieved, they will get another follow-up notice, and during that time, possibly a hearing notice, where they will come before the board. And there are 3 members of the board form the executive hearings. And so the alleged violator will come before members of the board to explain, to give their side of the story.
Okay. Now it looks as though you end on a second hearing, and then is there additional hearings after that, or is that pretty much the end?
There could be additional hearings if the violations are not corrected.
Wow.
Then there could be an additional hearing and could be potentially some legal action as well if the violation has not been corrected.
Now, you mentioned other violations. So, for instance, like you said, not picking up after your dog or having your dog bark, and clutter. What do you mean by that?
Excessive storage of stuff outside if you're on your manor, stuff that's visibly eyesores, a lot of storage area, boxes, all kinds of stuff that just constitute, it's not a good pathway for walking.
Right.
Sometimes inside, if there's an issue where maybe it obstructs the entrance by emergency medical groups. So if they have difficulty getting into your manor, and those kinds of things. Anything that obstruct maybe landscaping, stuff like that. And also abandoned vehicles, stuff like that.
Yeah, or I know that there are various zones for parking. For instance, there are some red zones.
Yeah.
Some people may park their cars there, and would that be considered something that you would write someone up for?
That would be under the traffic division. We have a
okay.
traffic division, and they do write citations for violation of speed limit and also parking in the red parking areas.
Okay. Now, when people first move here, of course, they get a copy of all of these rules and regulations, correct? And then you have them, and you're supposed to keep them pretty much on hand.
Yes. And like, myself included, I did not read the hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents that I got and that I signed.
Yeah.
So,
but if they ever needed to review it, though, of course, that all this information would be in there?
If it's not in the paperwork itself, it is online.
Oh, okay.
It's available on the website.
Okay,
for
perfect.
The compliant.
Now, you do have a few numbers, so you want to let people know. So when would you want to call security?
You would call security, and oftentimes noise is a very common issue that security gets called on, especially in the late evening when people are trying to sleep, and offenders, or like a lot of us, have grandchildren. And grandchildren like to run and play, and it's not in their nature to be very quiet for a long period of time because they're kids.
Right.
And so sometimes they create a lot of noise, and security is called. One of the things I want to mention is when a resident calls security, oftentimes security will keep the reports anonymous. So your neighbor may not know it's you that's called. We try to keep some of this information confidential. So to minimize any thinking about retaliation, oftentimes people are reluctant to make a complaint because they fear retaliation from whoever they may be complaining about. So call security, very, very important, and give the information.
Yeah, okay, good. And then you also have a compliance division, so is this where you would file your complaint?
You can actually, in addition to calling security, compliance division is under the Department of Security. So if you call the compliance division at the number on the screen, you can register your complaint there, or you can send an email to the compliance department with your complaint.
Okay, perfect. Well, good recap. Appreciate the information. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again next time. And if you want to watch the third mutual meetings, they are always right here on Village Television at 9:30 on the third Tuesday of the month. We'll be right back.